The movie begins with a man parked inside a car, turning off the engine before entering a building. Eddie, a former soldier with an impressive military background, is at a recruiting agency. Despite passing all psychological evaluations, when discussing potential job opportunities based on his skills, the agency reveals they currently lack a suitable position. Eddie, willing to take any job, leaves. However, the determined woman from the agency follows him outside, assuring him she can secure a position for him. Eddie agrees, and the scene transitions to Marshall preparing to escort a witness. As they drive through diverse terrains, their phones lose signal, and they realize they are being trailed. The radio malfunctions, and with high beams on, they hit road spikes, resulting in chaotic combat between the marshals and pursuers. Amid the intense confrontation, both sides suffered heavy casualties, prompting the marshals to instruct the witness to flee when given the order. Amidst the relentless combat, his comrades fall one by one, and the witness flees the chaos. As the skirmish reaches its climax, only one marshal remains, meeting a swift demise. The armed adversaries, unable to locate their target, shift their focus to sweeping the streets. The scene transitions to Eddie, alone in a motel room amidst thunder and rain. He broods in solitude before mustering the courage to call his wife. Sharing the good news of securing a job, he counters it with the sorrowful revelation that he'll be away for an extended period. The stress of being separated from his family weighs heavily on him. As the night progresses, Eddie arrives at a building, awaiting the opening of its secure doors. Handing over paperwork to a man, he learns the job offers no overtime and pays minimum wage. Their task involves guarding a shopping center, and the command base is introduced by Vance, accompanied by Mason. The third recruit, Ruby, is briefly mentioned. Vance reveals the final team member, Johnny, instructing him to head upstairs, but Johnny ignores the call. Vance proceeds to familiarize Eddie with the 5 zones, expressing a preference for the last one. Providing insights into the local area's high crime rates and rampant drug use, Vance astutely deduces Eddie's military background. He sternly asserts his role as the team leader, emphasizing Eddie's duty to recognize him as such. With this directive, the shift begins, and Eddie, embodying the discipline of an army captain, approaches the task with unwavering seriousness. As he scans the surroundings, the building plunges into darkness due to the power outage caused by the massive storm outside. A sense of unease washes over him when a little girl forcefully knocks on the front door. Despite Vance's warning, Eddie opens the door, and the girl, seemingly distressed, collapses inside. Quickly taking her to the office, they attempt to call the police, only to find the phone lines dead. Spotting a man at the door, the crew approaches, and he claims to be searching for his daughter. Vance is relieved, instructing Johnny to bring her down. Skeptical, Eddie probes for the girl's name, and the man, named Charlie, consistently responds. However, when the girl awakens and screams, fleeing in terror, Vance locks the door. A second man arrives, revealing a suitcase containing $1.25 million in unmarked bills. Vance is given an ultimatum: erase the cameras and surrender the girl for the money, or face dire consequences for everyone inside. Vance hesitates, but Eddie refuses to comply, knocking Vance out. Charlie, acknowledging Eddie's military service, departs, heading to an army of mercenaries. He orders them to cease the search and converge on their coordinates, instructing his right-hand man, Deadeyes, to surround the facility with all available units. While Eddie desperately calls out for Jamie, sharing his own story of having a daughter named Sylvia, a ball suddenly bounces toward him. Discovering the young girl holding him at gunpoint, Eddie swiftly disarms her. She compels him to promise her protection, revealing herself as the witness who witnessed her father's demise at the hands of a ruthless crime syndicate. Scheduled to testify the following day, fear grips the group, excluding Eddie. As multiple men approach their facility on the surveillance cameras, Eddie issues commands. Vance hurriedly conceals the girl in a secret location, equipping her with a flashlight, water, and a walkie-talkie. Eddie sternly instructs her not to leave the room under any circumstances. Outside the facility, the guards witness their cars being dismantled, instilling fear. Mason, contemplating departure, is met with Eddie's unwavering resolve. Vance designates Eddie as the new leader, prompting Eddie to assert that survival hinges on hiding or fighting. The team hastily erects barricades and sets traps in anticipation of the impending onslaught. Charlie signals his men, and they ram a car through the front door. Eddie ignites a fire, setting both the car and the assailant ablaze. As the team comes under gunfire, they are compelled to relocate. One enemy infiltrates the rooftop, engaging Vance in a struggle. Out of nowhere, Ruby eliminates the mercenary, while others outside manage the aftermath of the chaos they've created. After Vance disables the cameras, he briefs Ruby on the situation while the mercenary upstairs regains consciousness. Eddie gathers his team, emphasizing the need to buy time and survive the night. Johnny, unexpectedly skilled in bomb-making, starts crafting explosives. a secret talent unknown to the others. Meanwhile, the rest of the team sets up traps with the available resources, preparing for the imminent threat. As they brace for the impending danger, Eddie notices Jamie moving around and learns she has an idea. The scene shifts to the mercenaries, led by Charlie, infiltrating the facility. They navigate the building, and the security detail awaits their arrival. The mercenaries attempt to access the camera feed and unknowingly approach the first trap. One of their men is electrocuted to death, but the others press on. Jamie employs a toy cart to discreetly approach the enemies. Charlie spots a radio channel on the cart, and his hacker opens the line, connecting with Eddie. This time, Eddie warns Charlie to back off or face consequences. Charlie addresses the entire security detail, enticing them with a bonus of $100,000 each, along with the promised $1.25 million for the girl's surrender. However, he adds a sinister twist, threatening to hunt down each of them, including their families if the girl survives. Undeterred, the gang continues to explore the facility, advancing toward the next trap. Ruby attempts to distract the mercenaries by firing an arrow at them, but their response is swift as they retaliate with gunfire. The mercenaries believe Ruby is lifeless, and they continue on their way, unaware that she is feigning her condition. Now Vance takes his turn, injuring one of the enemies before making a strategic escape. Meanwhile, Mason employs an electrifying move, incapacitating one adversary and using his gun to eliminate another. Eddie, on the move around the building, encounters a group of adversaries. Alerting his team, they engage in a firefight, allowing Eddie to evade the threat. The sniper outside alerts Charlie about the approaching county sheriff. In response, Charlie orders a ceasefire, but Johnny, overcome with excitement, attempts to alert the sheriff. Ignoring Eddie's warnings, Johnny pays the ultimate price as a bullet takes him down. Eddie communicates the tragic news to the others, emphasizing the seriousness of the situation. Instructing Mason to keep an eye on the food court, Eddie warns that failure to comply will result in dire consequences. Jamie suggests using her remote-controlled car to scout the men in the food court. As the mercenaries chase the car, Eddie seizes the opportunity, tackling the first man and using him as a shield to grab 2 guns. He swiftly dispatches the remaining adversaries, even taking out one who tackles him from behind. Simultaneously, Ruby and Vance join forces, but Ruby sustains an injury, prompting Vance to carry her to safety. Eddie awakens with a surge of determination, showcasing his formidable skills. Quickly rallying the team, he and Mason, with their badassery in full display, join the others and secure a gate for protection. This infuriates Charlie, who desires to personally finish the job. Vance tends to the severely injured Ruby, while Eddie equips Jamie with a taser in case of dire circumstances. The two share a heartfelt conversation, with Jamie recounting the tragic story of her deceased parents. Charlie, seizing an opportunity to negotiate, contacts them on the radio, proposing one last chance to surrender in exchange for the money. Eddie flatly rejects the offer, and the group readies themselves for the impending final confrontation. Mason spots police on the cameras outside, bringing a moment of relief. Eddie identifies the enemy communication truck and determines to take it out. Despite the group's efforts, the enemies breach the last line of defense, met with a relentless barrage of gunfire from Vance. As the police finally arrive, they apprehend Eddie at gunpoint. Vance, throwing bombs and calling for backup, manages to eliminate several enemies. Charlie smirks confidently. The police demand the witness's location, and Eddie instructs Mason to bring her over. Vance, with a broken voice and tears, stands up and shoots at the enemies, providing cover for Mason and Jamie to run past the mercenaries to safety. Injured and on the ground, still managing to take out 2 more enemies, Eddie pauses briefly. Back with Eddie, he scrutinizes the approaching cops and notices a gang tattoo on one of their necks. When Mason emerges, he is killed, prompting Eddie to retaliate while Jimmy escapes. Engaging in a physical struggle with a mercenary, Eddie skillfully uses his gun to eliminate the other 3 in front of him. Mourning the loss of Mason, he refocuses on the task at hand. After speaking with Jimmy and directing her to Vance, Eddie realizes Vance is dead. He encourages Jimmy to be brave and find her way to the store. Determined to alert emergency services, Eddie decides to disable the radio jammer. Jimmy expresses readiness, and Eddie prepares his gun for action, systematically eliminating enemies in his path. Moving through a hallway, he seizes a display bike and speeds through, evading any attempts to stop him. Deadeyes locks eyes with Eddie, sprinting towards him and firing shots. Meanwhile, Jimmy hides while Charlie remains in the same room, claiming no help is coming. Deadeyes jump onto Eddie's bike, sparking a fierce physical altercation. Recognizing Deadeyes as a formidable adversary, Eddie, despite getting injured, employs his handcuffs as a weapon. After a daring stunt with the bike, Eddie escapes. Utilizing the bike, he collides with the communication van outside, destroying it and unblocking the signal. Eddie radios Jimmy, and Charlie overhears this critical development. As the sniper aims at Eddie, Charlie locates a walkie-talkie. Jimmy swiftly alerts the real cops, prompting Charlie to shoot at her. The sniper aims at Eddie, but Deadeyes intervene, expressing his desire to finish Eddie off. Eddie skillfully takes down the sniper and dispatches Deadeyes, despite sustaining a bullet wound. He brings Charlie down. Charlie, aware of Jimmy's presence, reveals his tragic story and proposes a deal for her life in exchange for not testifying. As he grabs her, Eddie suddenly appears. Charlie advises Eddie to take the money and leave, but Jimmy uses a taser, allowing Eddie to shoot Charlie dead, saving Jimmy from the dangerous deal. Jimmy assists Eddie outside as emergency services arrive. The FBI, guns drawn, instructs Eddie to raise his hands. Despite his injuries, Eddie walks toward the FBI and Jimmy hugs him. This gesture convinces the police that Eddie is not the enemy. Vance seemingly survived the massacre, and the scene transitions to Eddie in the hospital, where Jimmy waits for him. She informs him she's being relocated and expresses gratitude and farewell. Spotting her uncle, Jimmy hugs him, leaving Eddie with a sense of remorse for not having seen his daughter in quite some time. In the aftermath, Eddie travels to reunite with his beautiful daughter and wife, marking the end of this intense journey.